The next whiskey is the new kid on the block for Ardbeg. This is the first permanent edition of Ardbeg that we've added to our range, and it came out last summer. It's called An Oa, so Ardbeg An Oa, named after this little peninsula, this little outcrop of rock at the bottom of Islay on the southwest coast, which if you look at it from above is almost a perfect circle, but a little rough around the edges. And that really is a great way of describing Ardbeg An Oa. It's smokier and sweeter than Ardbeg 10, but it's altogether a more rounded whiskey when compared to 10. The purpose of An Oa is it's right there to be compared and contrasted to Ardbeg 10. So the first way that we were able to do that is we maintained the strength being quite similar, so it's 46.6% ABV. And if Ardbeg 10 is raw, is like my one-word descriptor, this is rounded. So it's not smooth, it's not extremely round, it's not polished. That wouldn't be Ardbeg. But compared to 10, it's a rounded version of Ardbeg. The key to this whiskey, and it's been 10 years since we launched a permanent Ardbeg, so it's quite an exciting time for the distillery. But the key to this whiskey is there's 3 casks really playing, complementing and competing with each other inside this glass. So it's that same smoky raw spirit. Some is fully matured in Pedro Jimenez sherry casks for its entire maturation. These casks bring a little bit of chocolate, they bring some sort of rum and raisin ice cream. There's this salty, spicy sweetness. You might get dates and you might get figs from those casks, but you can't just use the PX. On their own, they overpower the smoke. You actually can hide the smoke. And I would say if you hide the smoke in an Ardbeg, that's really not what people are looking for. So we use about 20 to 25% of the recipe will be Ardbeg fully matured in Pedro Jimenez. To complement and contrast against that, we have Ardbeg in new char oak casks, or virgin oak, as some people like to call it. This is basically brand new casks which are made in America from American oak, and rather than sending them to a bourbon distillery first, we just simply bring some straight to Ardbeg and fill them with our Ardbeg spirit. What this does is you're going to find that vanilla that we talked about earlier. You're going to find that nice vanilla note, but it's still understated. But the most important thing about the new char oak is it doesn't hide the smoke. If anything, it really throws those smoky flavours up another level. So when you have that on one side and the Pedro Jimenez on the other side, which is kind of hiding the smoke, you have this nice contradiction, this nice balance going on. To bring those two very different cask types together, we use Ardbeg matured in ex-bourbon, so very much of the character of Ardbeg 10. And what you end up with is Ardbeg An Oa. It has an extra A in it, so quite a few people are calling it Ardbeg An Oa, but I can assure you it's Ardbeg An Oa. Like I say, 46.6. You'll see it's still a very light whiskey, but it has a bit more colour than the Ardbeg 10. That's coming from, you have new char, which is going to add quite a lot of colour, and you also have Pedro Jimenez, which is going to add quite a lot of colour. But it is just a distinction of Ardbeg that it really doesn't take on too much ever. On the nose, some people say, oh, it's not as smoky as Ardbeg 10, but it actually is smokier. What happens is it's smokier, but there's lots of other flavours in there compared to Ardbeg 10, which is much more about these big primary impacts. So smoke first, and then you start to get the sweetness. Again, it's raisins or dates, maybe chocolate. On the palate, you're absolutely going to get that. It's almost going to happen in reverse on the palate. You're going to get the sweet flavours first, then a little bit of spice is going to come through, but the lasting effect, the finish of An Oa is going to be all that signature Ardbeg smokiness. So let's give it a go. So again, it's at 46.6, so if you like water in your whiskey, feel free to add it. But I really love this one neat. I think it has that roundness. It's very, balanced and integrated. And actually the way that we did that is we've reintroduced a very old technique in whiskey that's kind of fallen away, I guess, called marrying. So after we make the batch of An Oa, there's just so many different flavours that are, competing, that we installed a large French oak vat on site at Ardbeg Distillery, and we simply make a batch, and when the batch is made, we leave it for a minimum of 3 months. We sample each month to see how it's developing, and it changes the flavour, you know, I don't know, 2, 3, 4%, but it's an important 2, 3 or 4%. It just lets everything kind of integrate, and it's that effect. We lose a tiny bit of alcohol in that 3-month period, but everything just really tightens up and kind of gets into the space it has to be in. That's why I love this whiskey neat. That's the main reason I tend to drink this one neat. But a few drops of water, again, you'll find that smokiness coming through, and you'll probably find it comes more like coffee, you know. There's a kind of coffee and chocolate note that will come out if you add just a few drops of water to An Oa.